Good afternoon, good evening, good whatever it is where you are. This is Isaac and Bruno. We're two business minded engineers. We're doing this, call it podcast, call it whatever, series of videos where we explore difficult questions in 10 plus, maybe 2 or 5 minutes. And this is episode number 10. And we're discussing a very simple question: how to have productive conflict. Super easy, right? So, Bruno, how do you have productive conflict?
Okay, perfect.
In
Just
5
hitting
words, please.
that timer. In
Very
5
short.
words.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna check 5 words to decide. Forgive me, Isaac. First, what's important to distinguish is between generative and destructive conflict. So in this case, we were talking about generative, sometimes called productive conflict. This is where we might have different standpoints, different stances, opposing worldviews. Something is opposed, but we are taking that opposition in order to generate something that's beneficial, better answers, better solutions, etc. The key to achieving this productive conflict is to always remember that it is not you against me or us against somebody else. It is us together working on a specific issue. So it's very, very helpful to externalize this issue. And you broadly have two categories of disagreement. There is disagreement of end goal, desired state, and there are disagreements about how to get there. So the sooner you can figure out, okay, is there a disagreement? Like, are we agreeing on where we want to go? If yes, is there a disagreement around how to get there? Or is there a disagreement where we want to go and there's agreement about how we want to get there? Like, these are some very, very small things. You want to figure that out as quickly as possible so you can focus your energy on actually figuring out the issue, the questions, etc. Another important element, and I'll stop so you can add your experience as well after that, is sometimes called this concept of respect for people that we hear in Toyota Production System, etc. This is so important in a business setting. Like, you have to assume good intentions. You have to assume that your colleagues are also trying to contribute, not sabotage or derail or something else, but that we together have a shared interest in achieving whatever we are trying to achieve. Therefore, we respectfully engage with each other. I might disagree with the proposal. I might disagree with something that you shared, but then I'm going to be making comments about what you shared, not about you. I will not say only idiot would think this is a good idea. That's not respectful conflict. That is not productive conflict. Productive conflict would be, help me to understand your proposal. I do not see how it accomplishes what we're trying to accomplish. So I am inviting, I am not ceding. I'm not saying I'm giving up my position. I am holding my position, but I'm inviting discussion. Let's hear out. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe, I'm putting the blame in quotation marks on me, and I'm giving a chance to the other party to explain, to illuminate, so that then I can, just because they explain, I might still disagree, but I will understand better why I disagree. And if I can say, hey, I still disagree, but I see where you're coming from, we are still in the territory of productive conflict, and we can figure something out. I'm gonna stop here because I could go too long about this. I wrote a few papers. One is about to be published exactly on generative conflict. So too much percolating in brain.
Yeah. Do you agree with this Amazon thing, disagree and commit? Is that part of productive conflict?
It can be. It depends a lot on how it is done. If I speak up and say, excuse me, I disagree with this, and somebody just cuts me off and says, Bruno, disagree and commit. Okay, like, we don't care. You disagree, we just want your commitment. That's not generative conflict.
All right.
But if I'm given the opportunity to discuss my disagreement, figure out Okay, where's the disagreeing position? I'm heard, everything is taken account. Yes, it would be generative conflict. So it's not just about, you know, moving on and stopping conflict. It is about actually allowing conflict to happen and resolve. Because if you look at a lot of bad things that are happening in the world, violent conflicts that are happening in the world, they usually have a very long history of pent up conflict that's been suppressed and hidden. And especially in organizations, luckily we are not literally killing each other. So it is good to allow conflict to come to its resolution instead of just putting down. If you're just putting it down, you're actually building up a reservoir of toxicity that is going to erupt eventually.
Of resentment and of not being heard and so on. Because I have my experience with this disagree and commit. It sounds so cool at the beginning, disagree and commit, until you find someone who doesn't use it productively. They use it to shut down an argument. I like a senior executive saying, yeah, okay, but you guys need to do this way. I know you don't agree, but now we commit to this plan. Just go back to your desks and just JFDI, yeah? Just do it. And you will find, in my experience, what it takes is, it takes people, imagine your ego is pulling the strings up here. If you go into a conflict-ridden situation and you do not take the ego off of you like a mantle and just put it aside, what will you have? You have exactly that. People pretending to explore, people pretending to decide, to agree. You will have all those crappy group dynamics that pop up to the surface, which is actually normal, because you cannot have a hope of having people in a room who are all discarding their ego and everybody is like a little care bear caring about everybody else and their feelings and so on. So how do you tackle that exactly? Like what have you found works?
Yeah.
Not as a manager leader. What works to allow people to bring this forth, this productive conflict?
So a lot of my approaches to that is rooted in martial arts, since I've been practicing all my life. And one of the worst thing, now I'm talking about violent conflict, you know, you're out with your friends, something starts happening. The worst position to be in is not realizing conflict is happening. That's the absolutely worst position. You don't understand that guy that's walking up to you, the way he walks, the way he talks, you don't realize that you have entered conflict and you're just, you know, chilling with your buddies, still having that drink, and you get sucker punched. That's a horrible position. In a business, something similar happens, obviously without sucker punches physically, which is good. We don't want such organizations. But what could happen is that you're completely oblivious that there is disagreement. If you're oblivious to disagreement, either conflict between ideas, between positions, priorities, whatever, you cannot engage into it. Like, conflict is happening, you're oblivious to it, you might lose whatever you're trying to hold up. You don't realize there's an argument happening, you don't realize that there's a disagreement happening, etc. So the first thing is to become more aware of these things, more aware of when there is a disagreement. And if you're in a position of leadership, the only way to do so is to invite. Kind of, not does anyone disagree with me, because that is actually shutting down, as you said moments ago, but rather to present a concept, idea, etc., plan, whatnot. And then my favorite is, what needs to be true for this to work? One, or second one, what has to happen for this to fail? So it's kind of, you are inviting disagreement not to you as a person, but a specific issue, artifact, plan, whatever. So you're kind of, you're moving the conflict territory with something inanimate, except between the egos. Like you said, it's difficult. Take off the ego, etc. And another important thing, when you realize that there is a conflict that's happening and it's getting heated up, like people are yelling and whatnot, distance is your best bet. Like, remain cool, remain polite, just listen, just observe, and then speak. We in one of the episodes we discussed our R&D backgrounds, etc., 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 and some of the companies I've been at have been very, very high on testosterone. So once I was in a meeting, where people were yelling, slamming the chairs, you would think, what the hell is happening? Is this WWF episode? But it was, borderline physical conflict. But we managed to go from that really destructive conflict into generative territory. Once, all the passions were let out, everybody sat down and it's like, okay, what is the issue here? Let's refocus. Let's rebase. What is the issue? What is preventing us from moving on?
Yeah.
And we managed to reset ourselves and figure out, okay, this is next step.
Right. So I will. It's a vein. I agree with everything you said. 3 topics I'm pulling out. Maybe we won't have time for all 3. First one is, I would say that as open source your thinking. Open source your thinking, invite others to debug it. Because when you say something, often, the thing is often when you explain something to others and you see the responses, you already can tell if there is a potential for conflict. You don't need to ask everybody, do you agree with this? Or like this stupid LinkedIn thing, agree? No, I actually disagree. Let me tell you why. So already be open to observe what is the reception is, the reaction is, before you go around making a check. Is what I'm saying palatable? Is it really? Second is, so open source your logic or your way of thinking, which might be logical when you drill deeper because there's only one logic. Second is go into things with a good-natured expectation that people will hopefully be open to have conflict, even though it's not always the case. But if you try to, as you said earlier, if you try to pretend that we're going to smooth things over, there will be no conflict and everybody will be happy. You are creating resentment. The conflict will pop up later, exactly when you least expect it. It's almost like you're baking quality issues in the system and you're saying, no, that's okay, that's okay, that's okay. Let's hope that everybody agrees. You're just setting the project, the endeavor, the relationships up for failure. So be open source your logic, be ready to give people the benefit of doubt. The third thing is be open to be proven wrong, which is kind of like the first one, but it's more on the personal level, that you, especially when you have a lot of thinking riding on something that you're contributing to the group, purely the fact that you have thought about this for hours, days, weeks, months, might give you a sense that you know more than the others. And you very probably know more than the others. Maybe you thought about more things in the system, more aspects. But also what happens is the same thing when you write a text. When you often write an essay and you proofread it and you proofread it and you proofread it. And the more you read through it, the more blind you become to typos. I don't know if you've experienced this. I get this all the time whenever I'm writing. So even though you might think you have everything done, everything ready, purely the fact that you have spent a lot of effort on it might lead you to disregard its flaws, which means that inviting the others and not riding high on your I don't know how to call it, self-illusion, that just because you put effort, therefore it is the right way to do it, already helps with the first one. So you need to be open. In the same way, tying to a previous episode, trust that others will have something to say. You never know. You never know. Yeah. Maybe somebody will disagree and say, no, this is totally the wrong way. But in my experience, what usually happens in good teams, good R&D teams, good product teams, good whatever, is that assuming that people have more or less the same goal, the same idea, the same target, the same objective, more likely to happen is that somebody will say, okay, yeah, I don't agree exactly with everything you're saying, but I think what could also be true is A, B, C. So in a way, it's like improv, this thing where you say yes and that for me has been very powerful. Avoid should. Nobody should use the word should. I know I just did. And connect. Don't say yes, no, but, yes, but, no buts. Yes, and so try to build on something. Maybe what you'll build is a tower of cards, and when you pull one, to fall. But that's fine. If it falls down, then you build it up. As you said, what needs to happen for this to work? What could make this not work? And I also ask, if this is true, what else needs to be true? So you think in a system. So prop it up, explore the system, create a monstrosity of yes, and then this will happen, and then the customers will buy this because this caters to their needs, and then you build, and you realize we're kidding ourselves. It's too many assumptions stacked on top of each other. Okay, which ones of those are elements of conflict? Which assumptions do we disagree about? Because then you take the problem and you decompose it, and then you can talk about which elements that are the foundation of the thing that you're disagreeing about, supposedly, are the ones that you can have a productive disagreement about, or exploration, or complementarity.
Yep. It's nice summary. We are well over time. But I just want to mention one thing. Yes, and to actually the last point that you made about be ready to be wrong. Mm-hmm. What's important for productive conflict is to try to avoid zero-sum game as much as possible. It's not about anyone being right or wrong. You want to actually move it. That's the important part of like breaking into assumptions, breaking it into elements, and then discussing the conflict related to them. It's not about me being right or wrong, or you being right or wrong. It's about us figuring out the best way forward. Because the more we are in the territory that there's right or wrong, the more we are closer to there's a winner and there's a loser. And people hate losing. And really, like business, modern work is collaborative affair. If we structure work and arguments and agreements that there are winners and losers, then we're gonna come to the first example when you ask is disagree and commit productive conflict. Not if you have winners or losers. Winners being someone higher up who says, shut up, I just need your commitment, not your agreement. That guy wins, everybody else loses, the company loses. So if you have a zero-sum game, you're not in the productive conflict territory.
Yeah, I agree. And of course, one thing we could explore in a different episode is that's nice and all, but how do you get the point where a team, especially in today's environment, where people can be either bonkers, conflict capable, but they're not actually conflict capable, they're just doing this. And they put themselves in one of the two polar opposites of the world, the way it's been structured politically, philosophically, and so on. In this day and age, how do you get there? And how do you strip away the nonsense? Because either people are very polar, or they might be the three options actually. Polar, so ready to polarize, ready to be me against you. I win, you lose, I win. The zero sum, as you called it. The second ones, people are apathetic because they've been in this situation. They're like, okay, shut up, because, oh my God, again, disagreements that go into the polar opposites. Then you have apathy, which is generally not a good situation to have when you're developing a product, you're launching something, you're doing something that has to deliver value to someone. And the other one is where people are maybe sometimes a bit too intellectualizing about things. They are not bonkers, they're not apathetic, but they're this kind of supreme being that thinks, the rationalists. Let's think about this in this way, disregarding the group dynamics. And those three types of behavior, each one of those has negatives, some of them more than others. So the question for maybe another episode is, what would you do, or what have you done to move a team from any of those situations or from this cluster of behaviors towards saying, okay, let's figure this out? Because that's a huge question nowadays, with people getting more and more polarized and more screeching in meetings, even if it doesn't translate to actually yelling.
Yeah. Now we have foreshadowing.
Foreshadowing even. Yeah. And we will have 10 episodes, so let's foreshadow the next 10. Very much with people. I think we start to tackle innovation. We started, then we go into people, because it all ends and starts with people. So we will have more and more of those kind of questions, I believe. And they are easy questions, so it's not a problem. 10 minutes are plenty to explore. Good. So that's the end of the 10th episode of The Puzzle. I hope you're enjoying. If you want to watch the previous ones, go to Bruno's website or follow us on LinkedIn and send us your questions, and we'll see if we can squeeze them in 10 plus 5 minutes, 10 plus 17 or whatever. Have a good evening, have a good weekend, good whatever it is where you are, and see you in the next one, on the second season of The Puzzle, starting 2024.